Hey, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our fifth working group, Resilience. Um, I'm going to share my screen so you can see my slides. Alrighty. Thank you for joining the Building a Resilient and Efficient Southeast Collaborative Energy Resilience Working Group, or BRESE. Um, my name is Justin Breitharp. I'm with the Southeast Energy Efficiency Alliance, and I'll be hosting y'all today. So first off, we want to kind of provide some house rules. Please submit your questions in the chat at any time. We'll have a brief Q&A following each of our speakers today, and then at the end, after all of our speakers have gone through. So please make sure your chat is set to everyone when you submit your questions so that we can see them, as well as comments. Please feel free to share amongst in the chat. The session is being recorded and will be shared with attendees after the webinar and also posted on the BRESE website. And then we want to give a big thank you to our speakers today, Jake Medley, Andy Rumbach, and then Samantha Hauk. Okay, so first, a little bit about the BRESE Collaborative. It's a regional effort serving 11 states in the Southeast. This is also the region that the Southeast Energy Efficiency Alliance serves. BRESE connects stakeholders with tools, resources, and partnerships to support energy code implementation and best practices. We're working to modernize building codes, streamline compliance, and expand energy jobs, and driving lasting energy savings. So as I said with BRESE, SEA, the Southeast Energy Efficiency Alliance, is the project lead. We are a regional energy efficiency organization based in Atlanta, Georgia, celebrating 20 years as of this year, providing expertise and convening and program management and technical support to all of our stakeholders around the region within policy and research, as well as some project management. And then, of course, I want to give a big thank you to our project partners, GreenLink Analytics, as well as the Southeast Sustainability Directors Network, who have been incredible in their help through this project so far. And that brings us into the project team in of itself. This is funded by the U.S. Department of Energy's Office of Critical Minerals and Innovation. And then as you saw our project teams, you can see our websites here. A couple of things. One thing I do want to highlight is the Energy Affordability Innovation Prize. This QR code will take you to that. This RFI is looking to identify opportunities and also inform a future funding opportunity. But concepts must address energy affordability, building energy code guidance, implementation, workforce and education needs. It's wide open. All different types of stakeholders are eligible. So public, private, and nonprofit academic institutions are all welcome to submit a proposal. Submissions are due no later than 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time on Tuesday, June 30th. So please submit your concepts. There's no limit to the concepts you can submit. So we'll kind of go back. We'll share more on this later too with another QR code. But I'll pause for a second. Maybe there's some who might want to get the QR code for a little bit. Okay. Excuse me. And then we're going to go into the poll. So we're very interested in knowing where folks are coming from, as you saw the region that we're working in. So please take a second to fill that out. Can we get everybody to do the poll?
Not quite. I'll give 10 more seconds.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Go ahead and end it. We got almost everyone participated. So um
Awesome.
we have folks from all across the board here, heavily in Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, seeing folks from Florida, Arkansas, Alabama, Kentucky, Mississippi, Tennessee, and Virginia. So it looks like folks who work all across the board here.
Awesome. Thank you, Samantha. That's great to see. We at least have we have representation from every state that this project is serving. So that's great to see. Alrighty. Well, with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to invite Jake to start sharing his screen, and I'm going to start sharing the introduction. So, Jake Medley is the executive director of the Mayor's Office of Sustainability in Louisville, Kentucky. He is committed to giving back to his city in various ways, and in this office will seek to lower industry emissions through business relationships and insights he gained working in Louisville Metro's Economic Development Office, among other initiatives. Prior to government work, Jake worked in business development in San Francisco, where he aimlessly spent his 20s hiking in nature. He is a 2015 graduate of Centre College and is proud to be back in his hometown with his sleeves rolled up. So, with that, Jake, I'm
Thanks,
going to pass it
Justin.
on to you.
Yeah, I was that it's true. I was spending my 20s. You have more idle time, I think, in your 20s. And I think I spent it probably the best that I could, which was in the Bay Area. I see Samantha, her background is the bridge. I ran that bridge a lot of times. I was there during the pandemic, and it was eerie running that bridge with no traffic on it. So, anyways, Uh, that's my background. Thank you, everyone, for the invite. It's very kind. I think what we have here in Louisville is a happy accident, really, and it's compelling. We have a program that is a resilience modeled program that came from a study done last decade, and I will go in a little bit more about that here in a sec. But float like a butterfly, reflect like a roof should. I will be talking to you all today about our Cool Roof program, a highly reflective program. That's a kind of a messy way to introduce, but we are in Louisville. We are the home to Muhammad Ali. So if you talk to a public sector leader here, you're going to get a clumsy Muhammad Ali intro in all likelihood. But Muhammad Ali obviously was a world symbol of peace, hope, and resilience. And so that's my way of connecting him to our topic here today. But thanks to Muhammad, I think everyone probably knows who he was and what he stood for. But in terms of resilience, what am I talking to you about today? I'm talking to you about our Cool Roof program. It is constructed to combat urban heat and climate pollution. Well, more so urban heat, which can feed into climate pollution based off HVAC strain. Uh, I will be talking to you about the incentive we created in response and its impacts and how unintentionally it really follows an abundance based approach of getting real incentives out to the community fast. I'm sure some of you have probably heard of the theories of abundance that are being spread by different politically philosophic minded people. And then we're going to leave some room for questions and discussion here in a little bit. But too long didn't read or your mind drifts elsewhere. Cool roofs have many benefits. Cool roofs are a highly reflective material, whether it be a
Hey,
shingle, a
hey,
coating.
Jake. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. It looks like you're still on the title slide.
Oh, okay. Here, I've had this issue before. And so what I'm gonna do is just, if I do this, do the
Yes.
slides change?
Are
Okay.
you
This
able
is
to put
this is
it?
a me issue. Sorry about that. But there's Muhammad Ali. Um,
Gotcha.
But back to cool roofs. Cool roofs. Thank you, Justin. Cool roofs, highly reflective shingles and or coatings. What they do, it's a pretty simple concept. It's not groundbreaking, but it's physics. It's white colored roofs which reflect sunlight back into the atmosphere, thereby uh, diminishing a, the impact of heat in a metropolitan area filled with concrete. And that is the idea. What cool roofs do is it reduce it is shown per the Environmental and Energy Study Institute to reduce electricity costs, HVAC driven electricity costs, anywhere between 10 to 20%. So I have the models we do at a 15% average. That spectrum goes up for larger commercial properties and down for residential properties. But then the properties and those products differ. So it's a pretty interesting conversation. But because of reduced HVAC costs and this is it's a circular process in which heat aids and abets electricity use, which creates pollution that feeds into worse air quality. So this in mass will actually help produce better indoor air quality over time, which helps our occupant health. It helps the quality and performance of HVAC systems, doesn't put as much strain on them because they're not being used as strenuously in the summer months and peak load times. So it also does that. That can therefore increase property value and it contributes to larger environmental goals. So this is a program that cascades. It's a small idea that can actually blow up into big gains and better resilience and health community wide if you commit to it over time. But background, how did we get started in this? Louisville is the leader, unfortunately, in a couple categories. One is in an urban island heat. So in 2016, we actually had a research team from Georgia Tech help conduct a study to show the urban heat island problem that Louisville has. And urban heat, you all are probably aware, is the differential between heat in city centers and then in our suburbs that are more lush with trees and greenery and all that good stuff. So it's the delta. It's the difference between your city center and then outside your city. And so that difference, we were number one. Georgia Tech found in having the worst accelerating heat island effect in all the country. We're outpacing Phoenix, and Phoenix is hot. So really, it's emblematic of city planning over time. Obviously, this is a study conducted from 1961 to 2010. I think we learned from the past, but obviously our city was set up in a way that didn't prioritize greenery or green space in our downtown. Hence, a problem that it was larger than other folks. So this really is the main study that influenced the program rollout. Here is a graphic I think that really helps detail. As you can see, the heat we have, I guess, red areas designate a 95 degree heat scale in our city center. So this is the central business district. I'm working right around here today. But then this West Louisville is a predominantly Black neighborhood that's been left behind for decades and decades. And then down here, so going southwards, we have industrial plants, other neighborhoods, lower socioeconomic areas. So this is a layered problem in that it's hotter in areas where people that are more vulnerable live. So it creates a lot of issues that we can try to combat. And so I'll get in there in a little bit, but just for a frame of reference, our university did a study not so long ago that showed that in addition to climate pollution, high heat, which again creates this accelerating effect of just poor population health, has and U of L studies showed that the life expectancy for folks, especially in West Louisville, is around 67 years, 15 years lower than folks out here in East Louisville, and that's due to a lot of factors. Heat itself is impacts health. But then in combination with pollution, we see markedly higher rates of COPD, asthma. So it's a real issue, and it's very unfair because it's hitting people who have no control over the situation and don't necessarily have the means to move or see the upward mobility that we tend to tell narratives about in this country. But anyways, that's one part of the issue. Another part of the issue is that Louisville, being a central location, while it powers our economy, we are a logistics-based industry center, which puts us above the national average in total climate pollution. This was a greenhouse gas inventory conducted around the same time as the Heat Island study. And basically, it just shows that we have a lot of pollution. We have pollution above the U.S. national average. It makes sense in terms of what we are and where our industries lie. But still, no one wants to be above the national average, even if we are a more industry-based city, just like a lot of folks on this call today live in states that have very similar situations, Rust Belt, et cetera, et cetera. So these problems together create an issue. Our metro government decided around 2020 that, well, even before then, we implemented the Cool Roof program in 2016, 2017, and then we came out with clean energy resolutions, like a lot of cities in the country, for reduced electricity use and cleaner energy and net zero goals. We have goals that span the next decade that we're working hard on. But I can't talk about the Heat Island issue without talking about pollution, just because everything's so interconnected. But this study, it's created these resolutions and really created our office and what I do each and every day. So the question is, on the net zero issue, on the Heat Island issue, can we improve these things? And folks, I always get, man, you're a little crazy to be thinking this way. And I am a little crazy, but I think it takes bravery. It takes a little bit of irrational confidence to think that these problems can be solved. And no big problem has ever been solved without those things. So thank you again for having me on. And I hope that we're going to get into kind of the nitty gritty of the program. We have the most aggressive incentive for cool roofs in the country because of that study. We should have the most aggressive incentive because we have a larger problem. But I think we've learned a lot of really cool things, pun intended, in the process that are replicable, make a lot of sense for groups here on the call since we have similar energy profiles, especially in comparison to state of Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi. I think this can be replicated. We're getting called to a national conference next week, so folks can learn more. So we're getting asked by national groups about this. But so this is replicable, and it's compelling, and it's a slow burn of a program, but it's something that can create high impact with modest investment. We'll get into that here in a bit. So the Cool Roof program here in Louisville is part of our Louisville Green Bank. So we have a green bank to address all different environmental issues up and down the spectrum. But Cool Roof program is our high heat answer in our green bank. So what is it? We provide the city of Louisville a $1 per square foot incentive for cool roof installations. So that's up to $2,000 for residential cap, a $2,000 rebate for residential cool roof installs. Those are shingle installs, and then anywhere between $5,000 and $10,000 on commercial larger building installs. And that spectrum, the amount of incentive there depends on the commercial building slope. But it's $1 per square foot. It's for residential, non-residential properties in Jefferson County where we have a heat problem. Especially, we actually designate more funding and prioritize properties in those high heat western and southern based districts. We've seen a lot of impact to date. That $5.7 million figure, that is the amount of economic activity that is happened, I guess, and somewhat aided by our program. So that's just the total amount of roof costs from contractors over the scope of our program. That is an estimate. Hard figure is that we have invested $875,000 into the program itself to date, which has incentivized and created 1.4 million plus square feet of cool rooftop. And then when we calculate that 15% average savings over the summer months, again, this is modeling. It's not perfect. We think it's precise. That does create compelling savings as these properties stack over time. And while the city doesn't see an ROI on our direct investment, that's not how it works for us. We're a community government-based organization. What we count as ROI is the projected savings over time. So I will get in there in a little bit, like what those projections are and how that's compelling for cities to operate. But environmental impact, per the same institute I referenced earlier, 1,000 square feet of cool roof does have an EPA equivalency offset of 10 tons of CO2 per year. So if you calculate our roof out, that creates CO2 avoided, which is good for our overall mission to become net zero. It makes we have a lot of CO2 in our environment, but it takes away some of it. And our program is getting more and more popular by the day. The equivalency per EPA of our 1.4 square foot total portfolio is the equivalent of planting a lot of trees and avoiding a lot of gasoline use, which is good. Trees, I love trees. We want trees in our downtown. We want them all around. They create real kind of in the moment shade for humans to seek shelter from. We love them. Trees also can cost up to $2,500 per tree. And so that cost adds up to get the same benefits that we're seeing here from our cool roof. It's much more costlier. So cool roof, while it might not be as pretty as a bunch of trees around the city or the lush view of our city that you got in my opening slide, you don't have to, it's not all or nothing on trees. You can put your money into cool roofs too, and those impacts are really broad and stretch further because we're talking about more square footage. So how does this look like in Louisville? This is kind of our residential portfolio here, or some properties are residential. These are actually affordable housing units that stacked our cool roof incentive with our solar program incentive. So they're seeing double, or I'm just throwing out numbers. They're seeing added benefits, obviously, with solar and cool roof. Cool roof is shown to actually enhance the energy profile that solar can provide a home. But as you can see, it's not totally white, but it's off-white, it's gray. It's got to be a lighter color. That's how physics works. I will be going to Cool Roof Rating Council's conference here, which will be filled with industry people who actually do the actual manufacturing of products. And I hear that there are a lot of promising improvements so that cool roof will extend to all kinds of colors of shingles and, more cost-effective means to spread impact over the coming years. So I'm really excited to see what advancements we're making in the manufacturing of these products. The benefits you see from residential are smaller in comparison to really these are the types of buildings that really increase impact. These are large commercial buildings. This is the largest mall in Louisville. As you can see, they have solar all across their property as well. These are non-solar facilities, but these are highly reflective roofs. Now, one interesting thing about commercial properties, if you are talking to anyone with a commercial property in your area, they're already getting a highly reflective roof. Now, if we're talking about marginal improvement, you could reach out to those property owners and talk about grades of reflectivity. They're already likely to get a reflective roof, but you could as a policy person or a nonprofit leader, you can get in and have conversations with these people and say, well, yeah, you're doing this, but you could potentially even get a more reflective roof. And while that might create some cost differential on the front end, the operational savings you see from that 15% average, now that goes up for these larger roofs. You can make a case, and you can see, and through those conversations, you can see marginal improvements even on commercial properties that are already doing this. So we've actually seen some success there. Uh, I want to be mindful of time here, but one reason our program is really successful is its simplicity. And I'm not going to go through all these today. We have on our page a process. These are the rules. As you can see, a lot of wording, a lot of verbiage here. But in the grand schemes of a government incentive program, it's pretty bare bones. It's pretty simple. It's straightforward. We kind is clear. We tell people everything they need to know on the front end, what gets the rebate. And so we have solar reflectance to actually have a meaningful solar reflective roof. It has to have a reflective property, and we tie it back to the Cool Roof Rating Council. They're the national nonprofit that actually they work on the science behind the products, or at least determine the reflectivity behind the products to show impact. But where we've seen success is that the instructions to put on a roof to get the rebate is straightforward. We have an application process that this requires a few items. It is a collaboration between homeowner and contractor. It's a three-page application. You submit that with 3 photos and proof of payment receipts. We got to be thorough. To our office directly. That hits my inbox and my associate's inbox, and we look at those applications, and then in 2 weeks we get the check out the door. That is that's pretty quick, I think, in terms of government. And really, I think where we've caught on like wildfire is within the contractor communities. And guess what? That's a pretty cantankerous community to kind of make inroads with, because these folks are moving at a different speed in which government moves. And so there is often the notion that they're not going to fuss with us because, we're slow. Not here. They know the process. They know if they email Jake or Heather Wright that they're going to get what they need processed and get a check back in the mail. So that's what I mean by abundance. We didn't intentionally create this process with abundance in mind. Abundance is a political theory that's been passed around by Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson from the New York Times, and kind of response to diminished faith in government. People think government is slow, clunky, doesn't work for them, doesn't meet them where they're at, especially in a practical sense. This program is not that. We are meeting people in a way that makes sense. I mean, we're not recreating the wheel. We're not overextending ourselves. We've just created a simple process, issuing a rebate that really doesn't accumulate to much more than $100,000 a year, and that's what drives this entire thing, and that's what's driven 1.4 square million feet to date. Now, modeling wise, I'm running short on time here. How am I doing on time, Justin?
We're right around the 20-minute mark, but I think we can maybe do a couple more minutes.
Okay. I at least want to get this done. So modeling. One thing we do here is, especially when it concerns different administrations, things change so much politically. And so we have to navigate through administrations that are pro-environment and maybe administrations that are more pro-business. And it just so happens that our mayor is very business friendly. I'm fine with that. So we have to make cases for why these things matter and why they work and why they make financial sense. If you just say you're going to invest $100,000 a year, which is what we've been doing, into a program, folks are going to naturally, at least maybe more fiscally conservative people are going to ask, well, are we getting enough back from this investment? And the answer, based on the model that we put together, is yes, it does. As I said, we assume 15% savings. Obviously, well, not obvious to you. These products degrade over time. If you get a roof, that roof is only going to make sense on your house for around a 20 to 25-year period. It's the same with these products. These products degrade. They're not perfect. They're not going to get the same reflectivity day one or year 20 that they got year one. So we factored all this stuff in. But basically, what we can see, and this numbering, this is kind of a moving target a little bit, but because this ROI actually increases over more and more time. But basically, this is probably like a 2040 program overall ROI, where we can see positive returns. And what we denote as a positive return are the savings realized by folks who put cool roofs on their home. Now, it's a little different for residential because those are smaller properties. So like the real world savings that a residential owner will feel in comparison to a commercial owner, that's a huge gap. And the residential owner will see more moderate savings, but we're calculating this over our entire portfolio. So we're talking about everything. And what we can see is that we do see a 110 to 140% ROI based on realized savings. We're not seeing the money back in our pockets, government, but it's going out to taxpayers who are then saving money on their month-over-month energy bills. That is backed up by Cool Roof Council and multiple entities, EPA. Cool roofs are being deployed all across the nation. We're getting called to the conference next week to talk about this, but these are real savings. Obviously, it's not perfect, but I would say we're on the general target of this amount. We have put in 875,000 to date. Roughly over the 9-year course of our program, we started in 2017. A rough estimate is that we have put enough cool roofs on properties around our city to realize around $443,000 in savings. And so the total break even for our program, meaning ROI just in general, means the moment until which the value created meets the investment. That break even point for us is 2035. So in terms of a long horizon program for governments to think about, we did this in 18 years based on $100,000 annually plugged into the program. Yes, the amount, it's not a crazy ROI, but it is meaningful and it does drive value. And this is something governments can do today that is efficient, that stretches further, honestly, than if you were just to put the same amount of funds into trees. So it's very impactful. And I think, at least in terms, a lot of this modeling was based off of energy prices in, I think, what they call it, the upper Southeast. I think these were DOE figures, which are very similar across the Tennessee, Mississippi, and Alabama areas. Not to mean that this doesn't also ring true for other states too. But we have very low energy prices in Kentucky that are driven by coal, and our historic relationship to coal creates a different problem for me and a different conversation entirely. But all this modeling is also based on cheaper energy prices, which not everyone has, including other states that are on this call today. So thank you. I'm over time. We are also making impacts in other areas around our city. We have a lot of room to go. We put solar on buildings. Our green bank in total catalyzes a lot of investment around. So we're trying to do a little bit of everything. But really the thing that is the most successful is our Cool Roof program. And thank you for listening. This is our mayor. That's the guy who puts me to work every day. Thanks for listening. If you want to get in contact with our office, we do have a Sustain Louisville on Instagram. You can follow us on Instagram. You can also follow us on our website. I feel free, folks. I'll probably send an updated PowerPoint presentation, at least a PDF, so you all can have this and reference it. If you want to look into the numbers and figures and ask questions further or ask me for some assumptions I made, I'm happy to provide that, but we can really get into the weeds there. So anyways, I'm Jake Medley. I do work in Louisville, Kentucky. Thank you for your time today. Resilience is the name of the game in the future. And I think, on the optimistic side of the aisle, I think there's a lot of really compelling work to be done in this area. And so thank you. And I'll take any questions.
Thanks so much. I think we have a little echo here.
I see some
thanks
in the chat.
so much, Jake, for that amazing presentation and all the great work, sharing all the great work you're doing in Louisville. I did put your website in the chat so folks can have easy access to that. And I think that's where they can also find your contact information if they have additional questions. But there are a number of questions in the chat. So I'm gonna ask a few of these, and then we'll probably hold a few until the end if you're able to stick around and answer at the end of the presentation. So the first one is, are there any studies comparing white reflective roof cooling versus cooling from airspace under black solar panel shading?
I don't know off the top. What we can do on the solar panel
I think
questions.
you're muted. Oh,
I'm muted.
I have to mute.
You're good, Jake. We can hear you.
Oh, okay. So I have to dig into this a little bit more. I just know anecdotally from our solar installers and some of the CRRC people that there is, the co-benefit piece is there, but in comparison, I would have to get back to you, Robert. Thank you for your question, but I think what we can do for the ones I don't know off the top, especially Robert's, I can kind of dig in and get back to you on that one.
All right, thanks. Let's see. The next one is, does the white roof significantly enhance energy production for bifacial solar panels? And in winter, does a reflective roof increase heating loads?
I know that no to the second question. Now for the not significant, it does a little bit, but not significantly. I'll have to get back to you on this in comparison. I know that for fact, but I'll have to get back to you with like real data that you can look at, but not to the extent that it offsets the benefits that you see in the summer months. Also, the data we really computed, I calculated upwards on the cooling load. There's a cooling load metric that DOE and all kind of energy related industries follow, and that differs. But in all practical speaking, the cooling load for us is around 4 months of the year. Does the white roof significantly enhance energy for bifacial solar panels? I just know that it just increases the energy efficiency of the property. Now, there's also insulation. We're thinking about putting together a program for insulation too, because that's also part of the overall energy profile of properties. But basically, now on solar panels, you're just going to get more bang for your buck if you have type products or HVACs that aren't working so hard. It will, I guess, expand the capability of the solar you're generating on your property. I mean, if you just think about it plainly, that's a good thing. In Kentucky, it's a little different because we have weird net metering laws. So anything you generate over a certain amount, you got to sell back to the utility for less cents on the dollar than it's actually worth. But that's a more complicated issue for Kentucky. But I would say, yes, cool roofs will just definitely enhance the energy production for your panels. That will stretch the generated panel energy further. And then it may give you more to either sell back to your utility based on your state's laws or your utilities policies, or lead to more battery storage in the event that you have a battery system or know an organization with a battery system. So
I'm gonna combine two questions, I think, and ask a little bit about your maintenance requirements for these, and then can a cool roof extend the life of a roof? So these are all sort of maintenance related questions. Both of these,
yes. So we don't do any maintenance. So the modeling I use is extremely conservative. I will say that. Like I just like all the assumptions I made include the following. So maintenance for a highly reflective roof, yes, maintenance is required. And there's like studies from like a national lab, the Berkeley Natural Lab or National Lab did a study in the 90s that laid the groundwork for a lot of the cool roof product expansion market. But yes, you need to maintain roofs if you want to see the savings in the ballpark that I'm talking about. Well, actually, no, we didn't. We assumed in our model that no one's cleaning these. Actually, that's factual. I assume that no one would be cleaning their roofs, which is just a conservative. It's a human nature, I think, a realistic human nature thought, but I know that some people do, and especially the corporate or the commercial properties are probably cleaning their roofs. But you have to clean them because dirt collects, and that frustrates the impacts. But if you do clean them, you can maintain higher reflectivity, and we'll probably see more savings over time. Now, I think I just calculate, again, being conservative, I just calculated 20 years. I think cool roofs do probably have a longer shelf or activity life than your standard roof that you would get replaced. But in my modeling, I just compared I just pretended it was apples to apples, but I think so.
Okay. That's helpful. I'm going to squeeze in one more. I'll save the.
No, and if you clean your roof, I think that's probably, well, one thing we can do, I would like to double check some of these things, but if someone on the team here wants to aggregate these questions, I'm sure we can get to them like within the next week. Yes, and I had a different thought, but go ahead with your question.
I'm going to save the financing question to the end because I have a feeling that might come up for other speakers too. But there's one in here that is about your rebates. Have you considered further rebates that may help contractors save customers energy from the building thermal envelope? So things like duct sealing, insulation, weatherization.
Yes. Oh yeah. So the short answer is yes. I think about these things all the time. I work with a couple energy managers here that work with our metro building stock that are like working with pretty nuanced different measures. I would like to do that. We are simply constrained from a budgetary consideration. Basically, I have a 100K cap. However, we did win some money from the DOE, part of like the buildings up prize. I'm not sure if anyone was part of the. I know we're getting help from SIA on that, but we're creating a program, plan to create a program for insulation, air duct ceilings for low income residential properties. That impact could certainly extend to these larger commercial things. We just don't have the money for it now. Maybe in an ideal world, I can, and this is what's helpful about me getting opportunities to speak with you all today and the Cool Roof Rating Council. Yeah, Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory. Thank you, Samantha. But basically more exposure to these conversations, I think will lead to more thought from policymakers on this, which could include deeper allocations for more meaningful benefits.
Okay, we are going to have to move on, but we're going to come back around at the end if there's time to address the remaining questions for Jake and additional questions you have for the other speakers. Anything we
Thank you.
can't get to today, we'll facilitate getting you all the answers, but we'll come back
these
for
these types of conversations open a can
yeah.
of worms. So we'll get back
Well,
to you all.
lots of great information, lots of great enthusiasm from the attendees, and great questions too. So we'll try to address some of these at the end. I'm going to pass it back to Justin. Thank you so much, Jake. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Gretchen. And thank you, Jake. We're going to move to Andy Rumbach. And Andy, as you're sharing your screen, I'm going to share your bio. So Andy Rumbach is a senior fellow in the Housing and Communities Division at the Urban Institute, where he co-leads the Climate and Communities Practice area. His work focuses on how natural hazards, disasters, and climate change affect U.S. communities, with an emphasis on affordable housing, land use policy, and post-disaster recovery. He has published widely in leading academic journals and serves on multiple editorial boards. Before joining Urban, Rumbach was a tenured professor of urban planning at Texas A&M University and previously at the University of Colorado, Denver. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to you, Andy.
Thank you, Justin. Thanks, everyone. And coming from DC, where reflective roofs are part of the building code. And so I just had my roof replaced with a reflective roof, and it was interesting having those conversations. So I wanted to share today, thinking about the topic and thinking about the group, I wanted to share some research that the Urban Institute did alongside our partners in Boulder County, Colorado. And this is energy efficiency of a different kind. This is an example where the state and the local governments in Colorado were able to design an energy efficiency program that turned out to be a pretty big success in a post-fire context, and so maybe very relevant for you all out there who are thinking about future disaster preparedness and how energy might fit into that picture. So a little bit about the Marshall Fire, if you don't remember. It was it was a very unusual event in Colorado because it happened just before New Year's in the middle of the winter. There was more than 100-mile-per-hour winds that came through the Colorado Front Range, and a grass fire led to one of the biggest suburban fires in U.S. history, kind of a small version and a precursor to the Los Angeles wildfires. In very short time, only a few hours, Colorado lost about 1,250 homes. Many of them were in, if you've ever been to Boulder, the city of Boulder, many of them were in a couple of suburbs next to Boulder, Louisville and Superior, as well as some homes out in the wildland urban interface. And so together, this was about $2 billion in damage. It's the most expensive fire in Colorado history. And most of the homes that burned down, especially the two that were in the suburban areas, these were built about 20 or 30 years ago. And so immediately from an energy perspective, Boulder County saw that the rebuild presented a real opportunity to transform the building stock and to potentially achieve some really significant reductions in both greenhouse gas emissions, but also in overall energy demand. And so, that was originally, and there's a little bit of backstory I'll cover. The idea was that the codes themselves would take care of this because it would require people to build back to higher energy standards. But very quickly, the story became one about underinsurance. And this has become an issue everywhere in the country for a bunch of different reasons, including inflation and the kind of COVID surge in material and infrastructure costs. But in the Marshall Fire context, about 75% of homes that were destroyed, the homeowners were underinsured. About 25% overall were severely underinsured, which means that they had coverage below 75% of the replacement costs. And so you had price and cost sensitivity quickly become the dominant characteristic of the recovery, people being really concerned about being able to afford the recovery and worried that they might not be able to rebuild their homes. So energy codes, strangely enough, became sort of the lightning rod politically of the recovery. I can't prove it, but I believe this is probably the first and only street protest around an energy code in American history where people actually brought signs out into the streets talking about a clean energy code. But the story is that all three of these jurisdictions that were impacted had either just adopted new very high energy standards or were about to adopt very high energy standards, the 2021 IECC code with some significant supplementation of net zero amendments. They were meant to be one of the most progressive land use codes in the country in terms of building to net zero ready and near zero emissions homes. And so this quickly became a very large issue because those codes were passed with the expectation that people would slowly have to rebuild to those codes as they did new development. All of a sudden, 1,200 or 1,300 homeowners were faced with the prospect of having to rebuild to these more expensive codes, and that led to really significant backlash in the community. Long story short, they ended up rolling the codes back and allowing people to rebuild to an earlier code. And so they knew, leaders in Boulder County knew that they were no longer going to be able to rely on the mandate to get those energy savings. They needed to design a program that was voluntary. And that's the origin story of this program that we're talking about. And this is just a quote from a resident kind of articulating this point that, to expect people who have nothing to build to these environmental codes on top of everything else is just too much. And this is one of the most environmentally progressive communities in the country. And so it's not as though there was pushback just on the basis of clean energy or climate goals. In reality, it was entirely around the cost issue that people were concerned. So that led to the creation of the Rebuilding Better program, which was a collaboration between all of the local governments who were involved, along with the major utility in Colorado and the state government. And so effectively, they joined together in a pretty short period of time and created a program where they wanted to incentivize rebuilding to higher energy standards rather than mandating it. And there were effectively large rebates that came along with rebuilding. And they had a tiered approach to incentives where the higher the energy standard you rebuild to, the more rebates you could actually earn. Crucially, they also paired those rebates with a really hands-on technical assistance. There's a bunch of examples of this, but one of them is that they hired one of the leading construction figures in the community who had built many of the homes originally, and they hired him to come and effectively be a one-on-one consultant to all of the homeowners who are entering the recovery process and talk them through these issues. But in a bunch of other ways, they created very high-touch situations where individual homeowners could talk with them and talk about their options before committing to an energy plan. And so this is just representing the tiered approach to the incentives. As you can see, just rebuilding to the 2021 IECC would be a $7,500 incentive. But by the time you got all the way up to the highest standards, which is a passive house standard, you could actually earn close to $40,000 in rebates. And so these were among or the most generous energy incentives really anywhere in the country. And ultimately, I think that you'll see in our the data that we collected that became a really key part of this program overall. And so long story short, they had incredible success with this program. And these numbers are only as of October when we published our report. I need to do a new poll with the county to see where they're at today. But in October, 70% of homes had rebuilt to higher than mandated energy standard. The only other comparable data we pulled from the Tubbs fire in California back in 2017, and they only had a 6% success rate with a similar program. And so incredible success, a different context, to be fair, but they learned a lot from the Tubbs fire experience. And the goal of this report is to then share what they learned forward so that other jurisdictions can have even more success if they design a similar program. And so this is just a breakdown of where people actually rebuilt to. Again, as of October, you saw that about 30% of people rebuilt to the minimum standard, which is still a high standard, is the 2018 IACC codes, but fully 40% more rebuilt to 2021. And then you had a number of folks who rebuilt to higher than that, including Energy Star 3.2, zero energy ready homes. And then you even had some of these passive homes that were built. I think the recovery after the Marshall Fire doubled the number of passive homes overall in the state of Colorado, and I think they have the most out of any state other than California. Okay, so we wanted to learn from this program, and so we partnered with the office that designed it and administered it, and we did interviews with a lot of folks who were involved on the government side and on the utility side to understand, okay, what were the key lessons, both positive and negative. What would they want to share with other folks like yourselves, and put out into the world? And so I'm going to give you the 9 lessons they shared with us, and then I'll have a link to the report at the end where we have a lot more information. And so some of these I think are pretty common sense. Others might surprise you. So first of all is just that a really strong multi-sector partnership was essential to this. They really needed, in order to stand up a program in a post-disaster environment, it had to move very quickly. And in order to do that, no one office or program had nearly the resources or expertise to do this. And so bringing together all of these different groups was really essential to their success. I would point out on this list of all of the organizations on the right, the one that maybe jumps out to me the most is Marshall ROC, which is the Restoring Our Community program. That is the long-term recovery group in the community. This is the citizens advocacy group. They didn't just keep their partnership among the government folks and the folks in the building industry. They also partnered directly with the organization that was most in touch with residents who were displaced from their homes to keep a constant communication with the needs of disaster survivors, which is really important in the post-disaster environment. A lot of programs fail because they sort of miss the mark with survivors. This conversation helped guarantee that the program was constantly adjusting based on the situation of the moment. Lesson 2 is that they really leveraged hard their existing programs. Rather than building a new infrastructure up from the ground, they leaned into an existing rebate program that Xcel Energy already had. And in order to do that, they basically were just able to pump up the amount of the rebates, but all of the delivery infrastructure was there in terms of signing households up, making sure that the inspections happens, getting the incentive checks out in the mail, doing the evaluation, all of that was already there. And so within 3 months of the fire, they had this entirely new program stood up with no additional administrative structures. They really found that to be effective. They also found that homeowners were able to access these incentives through very familiar channels, which, in their energy bill, they got a notice about this program. That really helped raise the awareness very fast. After a disaster, any of you who've been through one know this, there's so much information flying at households, it's very easy for them to miss key pieces of information. This really helped get this program in front of people very early on, and really were able to get good saturation in terms of people's knowledge about it. Lesson number 3, and this is probably the most important lesson, is that the financial incentives made a big difference. They were large enough to grab people's attention, and we have a bunch of interesting quotes in our article we talked to contractors and we talked to other folks, and they talked about, yeah, with the usual incentives that are really small, we just grab them with stuff we're going to do anyway, and we just use them because they're there. These incentives actually change people's behavior. They would have done things differently had these incentives not existed. And so it really helped to get past the free rider problem and get towards true change in the way that people were rebuilding, and that then impacted the whole rebuilding sector. Because once, there's probably only 20 or 30 contractors working across all of these homes. These are all in subdivisions. Once one contractor or 2 contractors came on board, the knowledge about the program started to spread, and the comfort level with it began to spread. And I think you saw a big knock-on effect. And so the big part of that was the incentives helped people get over that initial hump and get them very interested in the program. It's probably a very good question. Well, where did those incentives come from? I'm happy to talk more about that later, but it was a combination of the utility coming in and providing resources, but also the state legislature stepping in and helping make this part of their overall recovery package. When you add it all up, it's not a terribly huge amount of money, but I do think that there's some lessons there about not trying to go at the lowest incentive possible, because it may not do much beyond like people who are already going to do that rebuilding accessing that resource, which doesn't really change the curve at all. All right, lesson 4, not just the size of the incentives, but also the structure of the incentives really mattered. And this was on both on the positive side and also the lessons learned side. They designed this program to send the incentive to the homeowners rather than the contractor, which is different than many of the other electricity incentives and other parts of the sort of everyday life in Colorado. And the reason they wanted to do that was to sort of put the homeowner in the driver's seat and really make them excited about bringing that incentive to different contractors that they were shopping for their rebuild, and having the contractors sort of competing for that incentive between themselves. They really do think that that helped educate homeowners and create a demand for higher energy rebuilding. Where it was difficult was that it put a lot of the responsibility on the shoulders of homeowners, which is not great in a post-disaster environment. People are traumatized. They have a lot of things going on in their mind. It's difficult to take that on in addition to other things. And so I think most of the folks we talk to would probably do things slightly differently in the future, probably bringing builders in earlier in the process and creating more of a sort of split incentive where, yes, the homeowners are still involved, but the builders are coming on board earlier and becoming more educated as well. Number 5, there were some really interesting stories about jurisdictional differences. Because this fire was spread across 3 different local governments, like many disasters do not stop at jurisdictional lines. They all had to be sort of on the same page about this program, because if they weren't, they were going to have constituents saying that the program was unfair because these people over here are getting this and I'm not, and why not? One specific example of that was Boulder County, out in the county, actually had higher energy standards anyway. And so at first they were not, people, if they just rebuilt to code, were rebuilding to the first tier, the $7,500 tier. And originally the design was not to give those people the $7,500 incentive because they're just rebuilding to code. That turned out to pretty quickly to feel very unfair to people. Why are they, it creates a very perverse incentive where why would I rebuild to a higher code if I'm being penalized for it? And so they ultimately changed the program to give that incentive automatically to many of those Boulder County households. But it led to this bigger lesson about making sure that you have good collaboration between the different jurisdictions so that you don't create sort of artificial competition or feelings of unfairness between different voters. Lesson 6 was uncertainty, and we heard this probably more than anything else from our interviews, including with a lot of elected officials. Uncertainty is a critical barrier to sustainable rebuilding and can kill a program like this. And maybe not surprisingly, there was some pretty quick action on behalf of I don't know the right way to describe them. I will describe them as actors who did not have great intentions, who wanted to sort of cast doubt on this program because they were hoping to come in and rebuild very quickly to the lowest standard and sort of maximize, minimize the amount of time they had to spend and maximize the amount of work they could get. And they started to cast doubt on the cost of this program and how much it was going to cost to implement. And that created a ton of uncertainty in the community, which really affected the people who designed this program and the amount of communication that they had to do. And so the advice that they give is to really lock down, like we just heard about Louisville, right? We're locking down the numbers with careful study, trusted study partners. We're putting that information out into the public, and we're defending those numbers publicly early and often as really key. And so an example of this is the I'll call them not great actors were circulating this idea that it was actually going to cost 70 to 100,000 to rebuild your homes to this amount. So yes, you get an incentive for 20,000, but you're going to end up paying 80,000 out of pocket. The actual resulting cost after 3 years, it turns out, was 6 to 22,000. So many of the homeowners actually profited off of the incentive. It covered the entire cost of the rebuild to higher energy standards, which is what the government expected from the very beginning. And so you can see this key difference. But at the time, and from the perspective of the homeowner, they were hearing these 2 different messages and didn't know who to trust. And that became a really important challenge. Lesson 7. This was one of the sort of, if there was any regrets among the folks who designed this program, is that they did not really think about whether you want to call it equity, whether you want to call it fairness, whether you want to just think about it as having sort of program access. They had the same rebate for everybody, no matter who you were. If you were wealthy, if you were low income, if you were a multi-generational homeowner, if you were it didn't matter who you were, the incentives were exactly the same. They really think that if they were to do it again in the future, they may not change the incentives per se, but they would try to reduce some of the upfront costs for people who have less wealth. Because, like many incentives, these are rebates. And so it still requires you to put money on the, cash on the barrelhead to do these things before you get your money back. Well, that's more challenging for someone who may not have a large savings account. They may not have as good of insurance. They may be really underinsured. they would redesign the program to allow some group of people who are financially challenged to be able to access maybe these programs as a grant rather than a rebate in order to make the program a little bit more inclusive. And again, they're still collecting the data on who did and did not recover. But the key fact here is that most of these homeowners were relatively well off. If the exact same disaster were to happen in a lower income neighborhood, they would probably have to change the design of the program, or they would have a much lower rate of people participating. And then lastly, or maybe second to last, one of the key messages that came out of this was that the message that you lead with really, really matters. This is, if you talk with these folks who are in this office, they are like the Office of Energy and Sustainability and Resilience. They are all about the environmental impacts, the environmental benefits, resilience, sustainability, net zero energy. They said that they went out with that message and it completely fell flat with the people who are rebuilding. And these are very climate progressive people. What people wanted to hear was how great their house was going to be. Their house was going to be super efficient, super comfortable, super X, Y, and Z. And they basically said you had to get people excited about the prospect of rebuilding. They completely changed their messaging midstream because they realized that all the things that got them excited as clean energy professionals is not what gets a disaster survivor excited about rebuilding to a passive energy standard. They want to hear about how awesome their home is going to be and how great this opportunity is for them. And that was a huge lesson that they learned. And then lastly, they're just saying preparation is key. They wish they would have started all of this earlier. They could have had this program set up and then had it sort of on the shelf ready to go when the disaster happened. They didn't, but they basically said, hey, all of you out there, this is the actual quote, don't reinvent the wheel. Take everything we did, steal it, bring it over to your jurisdiction and use it yourselves. Do whatever you want to do with it. Go to our website and take all of it. It's for you. And so they're just encouraging everyone out there to do this program also. And I think that's exactly 20 minutes, according to my timer. But the full report here called Rebuilding Better After the Marshall Fire is available on the Urban Institute website. And like I said, that's a collaboration between us and the Boulder County Office of Sustainability, Climate Action, and Resilience. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Andy. We have a few questions in the chat I'd love to throw your way. The first one is, were the concerns about the upfront costs to rebuild to the new code valid? Has a comparative study been conducted related to that?
Yes. So, and kind of putting yourself back in the shoes of at the time, you have 1,300 homes destroyed. You have this huge supply shock coming out of COVID. You also have Colorado. If anyone knows the Front Range, it's one of the highest growth regions of the country. And so you also just have a really constrained supply of like contractors and construction firms and everything else. And so there was a lot of uncertainty around, anytime, like the same thing is happening in Los Angeles right now. Construction costs, they're going to be higher than normal times. You just don't know how high. But the local governments actually all came together and commissioned a study to ask what rebuilding to those higher standards would cost, and they thought it was going to be in that $5,000 to $25,000 range, depending on the home and the layout and the customization and everything else. They were really confident of those, but the public backlash was so strong. And we interviewed for a separate project. We interviewed all the elected officials. They said, even though I believed in our numbers, I had to make the other choice because the public was so adamant about it. I think that the number I showed you, where it came in right between 6 and 22,000, and that's based on real data from real reconstruction, they were right all along that that's what it was actually going to cost. Again, it's not to say that that uncertainty didn't come from a good place with homeowners. They were just trying to make sure that they weren't going to get caught in a rebuilding trap where they couldn't afford to finish and they would have to move. But maybe a little piece of evidence that things worked out for the better than they thought. We're tracking the size of homes being rebuilt through this whole area, and the average home is being rebuilt to about 10 or 15% higher square footage. And so people clearly had a little bit extra left in their budget than they thought they would. And so people are actually building slightly larger than they would have their original footprint, which I think says something about the recovery ended up being more cost efficient than the pessimist would have said.
Who did the study that you mentioned? Who conducted that?
I'm sorry, the original one about the cost estimate?
Yeah.
It's on the Louisville and Superior website. It was an energy construction consulting firm in the Front Range that specializes in these kind of questions.
Okay.
And they do, yeah, I forget off the top, it's like Dynamics or something like that. But this is basically what they do, is study these kind of questions.
Great. Thank you. There's a two-parter here, question I'm going to do next. Did Excel have to get Public Utility Commission approval to change its programs, or did the existing utility program work? And then the second part is, did Excel get partial and proportional credit for the program net energy savings?
That's actually a great question. I actually don't know. I'd be
Okay.
happy to follow up with that with our Excel partner. Um, that's a great question. I believe I'll speak this. I'm not a utility expert. Like I said, the state legislature passed a companion piece of legislation that created a fund to help support some of this. And I don't know if it was in that bill that I'll follow up,
Okay.
but I do know that Excel was able to move fairly quickly, but they had strong political support from the get-go, for that.
Okay, great. Yeah. I guess my last quick question is, what advice do you have in terms of, the transferability of, if you're working in a less progressive, jurisdiction, less progressive environmental policies, code policies, what advice do you have in terms of the lessons learned here in this case study for folks on the call?
I mean, from my perspective, I've always said this, I think you can accomplish all the same things without ever saying the words climate or anything, right? Like, you're
Yeah.
talking about energy standards, you're talking about home comfort, you're talking about a bunch of other things. I think that, these homes are not only going to be way less expensive to operate, they're also going to be more resilient to heat waves. I think programs like the Fortified Roof program that's spreading throughout the South right now, Alabama is the real leader on that. I think they're evidence that people with the right incentives and with the right people are very willing to upgrade their homes and it's not necessarily, yes, it has climate benefits, but really it's all about saving the consumer some money and building a better house. And I think that even in this place, that became the key message out of all of this, was not that like we save so much carbon emissions. It became that all of these homeowners have better homes with better energy envelopes, and they also are saving money every month. And I think for that reason, it was a pretty successful program. The government can then use it towards their own emissions goals.
That's great. Thank you. And I wondered, Andy, if I could ask you to drop the website that you mentioned, because I don't have that one on my list, but I'll drop your Urban Institute website in a second. But we're going to have to move on to our next speaker. But I really appreciate your time, and thanks to the crowd for the great questions as well. And I don't think we're going to have time to come back around. We're running a little bit behind this morning, but we will get answers to questions. We'll coordinate with the speakers and either post those on our BRESE website, or we'll send those in our follow-up email to folks. But I'm going to pass it back to Justin. Thanks so much, Andy, for being here today.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Gretchen. So I see Samantha has their presentation up, and I'm gonna brief introduction. Samantha serves as the interim director of community initiatives, bringing a people-centered approach grounded in experience across research, marketing, and sustainability. They hold a master's in international affairs from the University of California, San Diego, with a focus on environment, energy, and health, and have worked on issues ranging from environmental justice and Native communities to local food systems. Their work is driven by a commitment to reducing barriers and advancing more equitable community and data-informed solutions. So with that, I'm going to pass it to you, Samantha.
Thank you, Justin, and Andy and Jake. Appreciate the dialogues and conversation and learning space today. And thank you everyone for being here today. For the working groups on energy resiliency, today I'm going to be introducing you to the GEM platform from GreenLink Analytics. before that, my slide will change here. There we go. So GreenLink, we were founded in 2014. We're a 501c3 based in Atlanta, Georgia, that conducts energy and equity research, consulting, and focused at the state and local levels across the US. Our mission is to advance the clean energy transition as fast and fair as possible. So this is our amazing team. And as Justin said, I'm Samantha. I've been with the organization about 4 years, and I hold previous experience working at the county, state, as well as small neighborhood, business, and nonprofit levels. And the work that I've done previously heavily adds to what I do today, building bridges between local governments and neighborhoods to improve resiliency for all. So today I'm going to do very brief introduction to GLA and some intro and use cases for GEM. And then if we have time, I'll go into the GEM platform demo, some next steps, and a Q&A. And gratitude for all of your time and energy and being with us today. So GreenLink Analytics, we work nationwide, as I said, and we work with energy and equity data analysis and consulting. These are a lot of the different cities that we have worked with. In our scientific research and analysis focus on filling data gaps and bringing high resolution climate and energy data to governments, commissions, utilities, and communities nationwide. Here you'll see we have the intersection of data, policy, and community. GreenLink is in the middle, and that's also where the GEM tool lies. And these are, being a data organization, we track our own impacts. And so these are some of the results over the years that we've been an organization working. Now, I'm sharing this tool today because socioeconomic burdens disproportionately impact neighborhoods. This limits access to affordable housing, clean energy, and healthcare while making it difficult for leaders to measure needs, track progress, and build resiliency. So the GreenLink Equity Map, GEM, is an interactive web-based tool that brings together data on health, housing, and environmental inequities, with energy burden as a key indicator to help guide decision-making and resource allocations. So by highlighting disparities across neighborhoods, GEM supports more targeted, people-centered solutions and is already being used nationwide to direct over $1 billion in investments through 2025 toward emission reduction, grid improvements, and support for disinvested neighborhoods. Now, if you attended our energy affordability financing and incentives overcoming cost barriers working group, Matt shared on this more, so there will be a recording of that available soon. Soon to be published for you to see more details, but I'm sharing this again to connect that affordability with energy resiliency. Issues like bill relief, health, housing, and stability and displacement are part of the same story. I think Jake spoke to that earlier, and organizations often lack local data to target investments effectively. We've all kind of talked a little bit about this and how we need to collaborate on that. So existing programs help with short-term relief, but don't fix deeper structural issues. And regulatory or cost test constraints can hinder durable neighborhood level solutions. So the GreenLink Equity Map is valuable because it highlights where burdens are concentrated and where targeted investment can better align local governments and neighborhoods to strengthen resiliency plans. Now, this tool can be used in a variety of ways. There are use cases that help deliver resources to neighborhoods and provide insights to local government. And examples of this was using GEM to identify and confirm neighborhoods with high energy burden under the Weatherize Atlanta project, a great collaboration that not only worked to deliver energy efficiency and healthy home upgrades to owner-occupied single-family homes in high energy burden neighborhoods, it also brought forward and created spaces for a qualitative renter case study in high energy burden neighborhoods to consider how the Weatherize program can potentially grow into supporting more folks experiencing energy burden. So building something truly resilient means understanding all neighborhoods and configuring how we can pivot to support them, not just as members of local governments, but people in these neighborhoods. GEM can be used to understand what's going right, what's going wrong, by visualizing where neighborhoods are needing more care and attention under these programs. So the tool can also be used in creating neighborhood impact reports and understanding impacts of energy burden, which you can check out some of our publication on our website. And I also recommend checking out in tandem our YouTube page that has webinars we've done previously that show like the city of Richmond, Virginia, We worked with them on their sustainable development planning and more insight to data indicators, literacy, as well as importance of data visualization can be found there. One thing I like to point out too is that the tool can be used to create infographics. So if you are running public engagement, neighborhood outreach, listening sessions, you can use images from the map. This is an example of it, which I'll show in a second, to help develop what you're bringing into communities if you can't bring your laptop to interact with the platform itself. Now, I'm going to jump into indicators and the GEM tool itself. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. I can talk this morning. Or if you want to come off, I don't think we have time to come off mute, but the questions I can follow up with later. I hold office hours and demo times that folks can also attend, and I'll make sure that those links get shared with everyone. Make sure you can all still see my screen. I think it stopped sharing. Okay. So this was, if you wanted to look at some of our publications, this is where you'd find them on our website. If you go to news and media, it's under there, and you'll see we have clean and renewable municipal energy plans. We've worked on informational graphics as well as neighborhood impact reports. Our YouTube page has, here's the case study of Richmond's Climate Equity Action Plan. We worked with them in their clean energy, understanding mapping and transportation burden, clean energy workshops on how the community collaboration happens. But what I want to share before going into the tool is our indicators list. And so we conduct listening tours to get insight from city, state, community-based and nonprofit organizations to develop the different indicators that we put into GEM. And this is the website where you could schedule a demo or office hours that Gretchen just shared in the link. I will skip this for now, but I just want to highlight that we have this process guide for city community collaboration. It's free for everyone, so if you want to take a look at this before the tool, please go through it and check out page 8 because it's a way to gauge where you're at now and how you can improve your collaboration with your neighborhoods to understand the needs in building your energy resiliency plans. Now, in the tool itself, looks like I had a previous thing pulled up, but we'll stay in Atlanta, Georgia. And I'll just refresh this really quick. But when you upload the tool, it's going to take you to your base page. My Wi-Fi is a little slow this morning, so apologize. But when it pulls up, it's going to show you the map that we just had of Atlanta. I might have to zoom in a little bit here. But you're able to see right off the bat that it highlights, this is where I have my home base when I log in because we do a lot of work in Atlanta. And so you already have an outline when you first log in. When you're scrolling over, you're noticing it's telling you census tract, county, number of households, and median income. So you're already getting information and insight. And over here, you can turn off city boundaries. You can turn off the roads. You can turn off points of interest like Georgia Tech. I like to leave that all on when I'm in the tool because it really helps support with visualizing where you're at, understanding what you're working with. If you're not from a neighborhood in your city, it gives you insight to other things going on if there's highways going through, et cetera. And some of us work across jurisdictions that has been mentioned. So it's a good way to kind of see where those lines are. Now over here on the left is where we have all of our indicators. And we have several energy burden specific indicators. So we have energy burden, those experiencing energy burden above 3%, 6%, and extremely severe energy burden that was above 10%. And so if we click on one of the indicators, you notice under energy burn, you have electricity, gas, and water. You can turn those off or leave all three on to get the visualization, and you notice that the map changes. And so now it's telling you on the right, you have a legend showing lowest to highest percentages of where folks are experiencing energy burden. So these really dark orange areas are where you're going to see some of those highest percentages. For example, right here, census tract 7808 is experiencing 21.76% energy burden, which is extraordinarily high. That's over 5 times the national average, which is close, rounding up to 4% right now. And then one thing that's really cool and unique about the GEM tool is you're able to click on another indicator, and now you'll see where the neighborhoods are experiencing the highest, not just energy burden, but asthma rates in these dark yellow sections. And you'll see the percentages now when you scroll over them. This tool is really important because it helps really visualize what folks are experiencing to help when you're thinking about your engagement, your building of your resiliency plans, as well as reporting and driving where you're driving funding to support the neighborhoods that you work and live in. Other things about the tool is you can download the maps, as I said, for infographics. So if you download the map, it'll come with the legend. So you can put that into reports. You can put that into infographics with other facts that you're wanting to share with communities to talk. They create a lot of engagement and interaction and conversation. You can also download all of the data. So if you have folks on your team very strong in data analytics or organization, when you download this currently, you have number of households, median income. It'll tell you all the census tracts in Fulton County. And then it'll also, the disadvantaged communities came out with the Justice 40 tool that no longer is applicable, but the idea was to help support in driving for grant applications and funding from that in conjunction with the CJUST tool. So you're able to download all of that data. It comes in an Excel file that you're able to use within your work streams if you have other data. Another thing on our, the tool works in collaboration with some of the consulting we've done, and we've worked on projects where we actually work with cities to input data into the tool so they can visualize outage minutes to understand the energy usage and needs even better. And so those are some of the things that we've worked on previously. If you have any more questions about that, I know I'll skip the next steps, but please reach out to us and I can do a more insightful and go deep dive demo and talk about the use cases for you particular. I tried to keep it quick because I know we're very short on time and I like to be really respectful of folks' time. So with that, I'll hand it back to Gretchen and the BRESE team and just want to say big gratitude for all of you being here today and Jake and Andy for collaborating and presenting.
Thank you so much, Samantha. I know that was a little bit of a whirlwind, but I just want to emphasize how great this tool is for, communicating need, for emphasizing where and identifying where to direct, programs and funding. And it really is vast in terms of what it can do for communities. I wanted to, Samantha, I put in the chat that y'all GreenLink have a few spots left in June for folks that want to learn more and actually use the tool. Can you talk a little bit more about, or a little bit about the process for what it looks like when folks get started, just logistically? And I know folks, we're at time. We'll stay on for a few minutes here to address any questions. So if you have any, please put them in the chat. But I want to kind of frame that out for folks.
Yeah, that's great to hear. That was one of the things I was going to check with you all. So if we have some memberships under BRESE, what they would need to do is I just put my email in the chat. Please reach out to me and I can walk you through, answer any other questions you have and work together. I would need your organization or city email address, as well as just insight to where you're working and whatnot to get you set up in there. But I would recommend emailing me and then we can set up an office hour and have a discussion about it. And then I can get you into the tool. Typically, once I have a discussion and all the information I need, it's my capacity. So I always say within 48 hours, I can get you into the tool. So that's how I work. So
great. And what is the level of customization that is, if there's a data point folks don't see in there, what does that look like? That they're curious about?
Yeah, that is really hard to cover in like 30 seconds to a minute. But the basis is if you have data that you want to put into GEM, you would meet with, so our CEO, Matt Cox, is very, very involved in the process when we're taking on projects and incorporating data. So first you would probably meet with him and have a discussion about what this looks like. And then I work with our design and data team to facilitate how we can visualize, and we talk through with you, the person providing the data, to talk about what are your needs with the data, what are you really wanting to visualize in collaboration with the other indicators we have to really understand for the work that you're doing and support it. And so we have a deep conversation about that first, and then we tell you what the parameters are. I have a document that lists out, this is how we need the data organized or cleaned for us to put it in, and we can help you with that. but we work alongside you to make sure the data's clean, the data's ready. We understand how best to visualize the information, whether it's pins or another layer, like how I just showed you with the color gradients. And we work with you to then take the clean data, put it into GEM. Then we have like a beta testing section where like you go through and you look at the data with us. We make sure it's visualizing properly. And then you have access to that. And then with data sovereignty and security, we make sure that that stays within the neighborhoods or the community or the city that is providing that data. And we have a conversation about what that looks like as well.
That's great. Thank you. And I know I'm going to pass it back to Justin to wrap us up here in a second, but we will post more information about GEM, and there may be even a case study, Samantha, y'all have in your back pocket, because it might be interesting for folks to see, kind of a real-time example of how the tool was used to help with conversations, collaboration, funding, that kind of thing. So that's a resource we'll look forward to post on our BRESE website, along with this recording, slide decks, so y'all will have access to all this great information that was shared today. Thank you so much, Samantha. I really appreciate it. And apologies for the squeeze there at the end, but I think it was really helpful for folks to see this tool. And I hope people reach out to use it. I'm going to pass it back to Justin now to wrap us up.
All right. Thank you, Gretchen. Thank you, Samantha. So first off, a big thank you to Jake, Andy, and Samantha for your time today in the presentations. And thank you to our attendees. We know we're a little over, so we do really appreciate you staying with us so far. I'm going to share my screen one more time. And then just to do some more housekeeping. But first off, we want to say thank you for sharing your time with us today. So this QR code takes you to a short survey that we would appreciate your feedback on the working groups. And I think also they'll be sent out as well in an email as well, but we'll pause for a little bit. If you want to take out your phone, do a QR code and fill this out for us, we would greatly appreciate that. And then the next thing I want to highlight is session recording, and the survey, as that was just the previous slide, will be sent out to attendees, as well as will be posted on the BRESE website. And then I think can we share the BRESE website in the chat for folks, just so they could get an idea what that is? And then another reminder about the request for information. We're accepting proposals until the end of June 30th. This will inform a funding opportunity, a potential funding opportunity, but any ideas you have around energy workforce, like I said, it's open to all different types of stakeholders. So please submit. We have gotten some proposals, and we greatly appreciate that, but we would love to see some more. So please do that. And with that, we want to say thank you for your time and your participation today. You all have a great rest of your day and a great weekend. Thank you.